But as always, y'all know the vibes. Y'all know what it is. We are back for another audio occasion. 'Tis the podcast for self-starters and those willing to make the most out of any situation. The EFS podcast is back. We got episode number 71 on the way in. We got some real motivational audio, from a guy that's taking off this year, I guess, in the social media land, from the Grits and Eggs podcast. Deontay Kyle, I think is his name. Shouts to ATL one time, big time messaging on the way in. Ears up, let's get it.
And you got the endurance.
Oh, man, I always do this. We always do this. Let's do it. From the top, from the top.
When you take the long way, you'll appreciate the scenery. And you got the endurance. See them motherfuckers that take that wide road? The road that's all accepting? Come one, come all.
Talk to them.
You have to walk far to get there. You ain't have to pay for the lights. You ain't have to build it up. They built it up for you. They already had the character in mind when they seen you. They got the low-hanging fruit that you ready to eat. So when times get dark, you don't know how to endure. But when you take that long road,
take it.
You know that sometimes it's gonna be some peaks. And that when you hit that peak, make sure you pause, you look out at the scenery, you take it in. Because you earned your way to that scene. You earned that view.
You work for it.
And you know that when you in that valley, that all you got to do is keep moving forward.
And that's that. Just keep
moving.
When
you arrive alive. They can't chew you up and shit you out because you ain't here to be ate.
You're not.
I'm here to make my own machine.
We are.
I'm a beast all by myself because I took the long way.
You see me. You see me.
All that shortcut shit. What's the thing about fast food? Time they hand it to you, that shit cold.
That's that. And that is that. So feel that on the way in. Pause myself on that one. Feel that as I drop that. And we're going to get this thing kicked off, man. Where my intro music. Run it. We're going to keep it light on the air horns. They say I go too crazy with the air horns. So another one here. You lied. You lied. He lied to you. We gassed up off our own energy today. Let's make this thing happen. We are back for another episode of the EFS podcast. As always, if you made it to the audio/visual, please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We here, and it's just me again. As I was saying on the pre-pod, I kind of like these quick hitters, man. Just get in here, get my shit off, and get out. So we're going to do just that today, man. Thank you for coming. Tell a friend to tell a friend. As we fade out this theme music, we just going to get right into it, man. Hopefully everybody is blessed in this holiday season. Never really the biggest holiday guy. I'm not like that myself. But, if you partake, enjoy. Families, friends, all that other good stuff. Spending all the money on people you love, you care about. And some that you don't, because you end up spending a lot of money sometimes as people you don't give two shits about just to, do the right thing. Just like that. Speaking of, might have to do the same, but I actually care about the people I'm gonna spend a little bit of money on, just because we talked about that on the last episode. Holiday party is coming pretty soon. A little small tidbit on the way in. Got the holiday party ringing off for the clients and the not all clients, but people who are in the, I guess the circle, kind of, or people that I just appreciate for some contribution to everything that I'm doing in one way or another. We got a holiday party coming, man, December 19th, first one under my brand. I've done these things for others before, but this will be the first one under the EFS, to put us on the spotlight, and we're really looking forward to it. So if you do have an invitation, please don't forget to RSVP really soon. It ain't that far away, December 19th, to be here before you know it. So don't be late, because I only got so much food that I'm paying for. And if you miss out, you miss out. Hit the bar, hit the menu, get your own, but don't say I didn't tell you. But either way, man, we here, excited to be here for another episode, number 71, as we keep this thing rolling. A few topics on the board for discussion today, and one really mainly that means the most to me in this conversation and we'll just tap in on the way in, man. This one lies in the athletic side of things and just kind of some things that I wanted to dive into a little bit deeper in my time of being a content creator. And, looking back, just skimming through the old episodes and all that when I had, Waldo on the couch, other people in the house and just going back and forth tag team. And sometimes you miss certain conversations that you would like to have and you want to find a way to squeeze them in again, just because of the overall purpose, vision, and messaging that you want to put out there to the world. So what better time than when I'm here alone to do that, right? Ain't nobody to interrupt me. Ain't nobody to have to give the microphone to, not that I don't mind doing that for my brothers, my people who come in the house. But sometimes, man, it's just about getting off clear, concise, and also thoughtful messaging. And that's the one that we're kind of going to lean into today. So as I said, this one falls on the athletic side of things. And it was sparked weeks and weeks ago by a conversation that I had with my homeboy who is, Drew or False, my man. My brother, shouts to you. We had a conversation recently just because he was watching the Sebastian Telfair documentary, the one leading up to him being in prison, which he is currently incarcerated. If you know, you know. But if you don't, then yeah, Sebastian Telfair was a very highly touted elite high school basketball player back when I was in high school. And if you didn't know much about his career, he went on to the NBA, bounced around for some teams, ended up out of the NBA, got in some trouble while he was in the NBA, and then ended up out of the NBA. And now he's currently being incarcerated for some trouble he's gotten into. Look it up if you want to. I'm not here to dive into all the details on that just because that's not the main part of the conversation. But either way, doubling back to what me and my man Drew False was talking about, he basically asked me, well, he saw the documentary a little bit later than it came out, and it's been out for a while now if you have or haven't seen it. He was asking me about it, saying like, yeah, have you seen this and that, whatever. And I actually told him that, bro, I haven't watched that documentary intentionally. Not to say that I won't at some point, but up to this point, I have not sat down just to watch it just because, and this is what I told him. I said, I don't want to really see him like that. And if the documentary is something that puts more awareness on his situation or just him in general, then cool, great. But my affinity for Sebastian Telfair and my, relationship to him, not really personally, but just, how I felt about him coming up is a little bit more than just, the story of the athlete. So if you know me, you know me. It rings true. Like, I am a New York native, born, spent some time back and forth, in and out or whatever, but I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Brooklynite, So Sebastian Telfair, for me and for us, if you're from the towns, Sebastian Telfair was a legend in the high school basketball game. And short story, I was actually supposed to be a teammate of Sebastian Telfair's when I was leaving Delaware to go back up to New York to pursue recruiting and go to college. Gone over this story a bunch, but I was supposed to end up playing with Sebastian Telfair and other guys, Antonio Benya, Eugene Lawrence, a guy I played against in St. John's, ended up playing against the Marquette. So, another dude, another Brooklynite, and other people on that roster was supposed to be my senior year, basically. So didn't get into that school, but at that point I was super hyped to have the chance to even play with Sebastian Telfair. From then, plans changed. I went on to play for Rice High School with some other great players. But Bashy was lit. Like, his senior year was supposed to be my senior year. I ended up taking another year for prep school after that, but headed into that time, like, he was smoking hot, like McDonald's All-American, on the covers of Slam magazine, the famous cover with him and LeBron still reigns true to, like, right now to this day. Like, it's legendary. Like, the guy was a legend for Brooklyn. So to see everything that his career turned out to be, from basketball to out the league and now having, what it seems to be very troubling times, it kind of like, it's sad, man. It's sad just to see someone who has so much potential, so much talent, so much of a runway ahead of him of greatness to then be cut short and now end up in a scenario to where his freedom is taken and he's behind bars. So I haven't personally watched the documentary just because I don't want to see that shit, and, someone that I considered a legend for my city and basketball in general, like, it just leaves a sore taste in my mouth, pause, to even watch that, but coming off of that conversation with him, my mind started to go to a place to, like, damn, like, how many dudes do we, like, how many times do we hear this story? Like, how many times do we hear about athletes who have either had very high highs and then, after their careers are over, they have either troubles or just some kind of mental health struggles or things that, interrupt their life in a big, big way or their development in a big way. And it kind of made me think about, even more so what I'm closer to, which is, the guys that play overseas. And how many of those guys leave the game with really something to, hold on to? Because Sebastian Telfair, not for nothing, we do understand that he had a lot of talent, but I do think he kind of got in his own way with certain things that happen. And, it is what it is, but you still feel for people while they're going through some things. But when I related to my experience and my, understanding of everything that I've been through overseas and seeing how many people in that lane or in that industry that just leave the game and just have troubled times after, it kind of put just a lot on my heart and, things that I wanted to kind of get off here to make sure that, my perspective is heard just because it's something that I've been through personally. And I know there's a lot of guys going through that same kind of thing out there right now. And, I see a lot of situations where the overseas game is looked at as one thing, but the real of it isn't really exposed. So yeah, it's really just about that, man. And it's really just about avoiding the trap of the overseas basketball game, and we talked about it over and over again. My career is what it is. 10 years overseas, 11 countries over that time. I can ring it off like, the back of my hand. Like, it's very easy to just go into what I've done in my career, but it ain't really here for that. Like, we here to have the real conversation about the whole overseas things and, again, just avoiding the trap. So what would be the trap? I guess we got to determine that out the gate. The trap for me is when something looks like it is a great opportunity or something that you can continue to pursue, something that you could soak as much out of, but it also hinders your life at some point thereafter. I guess is how I should say it. So I played 10 years overseas, if you look at it like that. And I've always been honest on this podcast about the fact that when I left the game overseas, I came back and felt like I was behind everybody else, right? And I'm not taking my career for granted. I think I played as long as I wanted to, And going back to my college days, I was always told from the person that, I graduated college with as my coach, Buzz Williams, spent some time with him at the Marquette, event that I was at a few weeks ago. So it's kind of full circle with everything that I'm feeling right now and gave me more of an understanding about why I am where I am in my life currently. So when I'm leaving college, Buzz basically told me, play until nobody will pay you to do it anymore. How much you want out of the game, what you want to do with it. And I'm like, man, Buzz, like, I'm just trying to go overseas and see what happens. He's like, bro, play until nobody will pay you to do it anymore. 10 years later, I left the game at the height of what I feel like was my development as a player. I was the most skilled I ever was. I felt like I had my game down pat to the point that there was nothing in the game that I felt like I wasn't prepared for. With my skill set, with the way I like to play, the versatility, and just, me being able to handle games and manage games, I felt like I was at my best at that point. And then I left right after that, or leading up to that, I was getting a little bit better. But yeah, I feel like year 7, 8, and 9 were like where I started to peak, that peak of an athlete where you really just feel like you got it down. And then career stopped at year 10. And I feel like I could have played another 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 years even, just because you guys know I take care of my body. And that was something I was never really, slacking on when it came to just being a professional, and that part of it, for me, having to stop while you were still able to physically, felt like I was going against what I was being told as far as play the game out for as long as you can. As long as somebody's willing to give you $1 to play basketball, you should go play, So that in my mind, having a disconnect from that when I did stop and then transition to other things, which we'll get to in a little bit later, like that point for a lot of guys happens at maybe year 3, maybe year 5, maybe year 14, So everyone's career is different who chooses to take that route and play the game abroad. But when you are dragging it out long enough to start to hinder maybe other opportunities in your life for after, that's when I feel like you get a little bit caught up in the trap. And it's a lot of guys that I feel and see that I feel like are caught up in the trap currently, and some that I know that were in the trap and got out the trap and, went on to do other things in their life. Now, I know the word trap seems to have a negative connotation, but I'm not saying it in that way to say don't play the game for as long as you actually want to. My main messaging behind what I'm talking about is just play the game smart for as long as you want to, and by that, we got to look at some numbers. And I really wanted to make a more, make this a more thoughtful conversation. I mean, conversation with y'all, whatever. You can respond, comment, all that. But did some digging, looked at some numbers, and the game of overseas basketball, for y'all who don't know, is kind of like a shit show because there's no real way to track metrics because not everything is broadcast and so out there like the NBA or like leagues in America, where the players' contracts are very easy to find. All that stuff is, public information, more or less. The game of overseas basketball is not like that. It was never like that headed into it, and maybe it's gotten a little bit better now, but it's still no real governing bodies to manage or understand what we are actually dealing with across the board and for players from the States. So, as I said, I did a little bit of digging, used ChatGPT to help me out. Waldo will probably be proud of me, whatever. But I asked it about how many players yearly are playing basketball across the world. Numbers came back somewhere between 2,000 to 2,500. This is men and women. And that's on a yearly basis playing the game of basketball as American-born players who are playing outside of the U.S. in different countries, different continents, South America, Europe, Asia, wherever. So 2,000 to 2,500, roughly. So of that said, that means there's a pretty decent amount of people out there that ain't in the NBA, that played college, grinded it out in college, and then see there's other opportunities outside the U.S. and took it on and played. Now, enter the compensation part of it. Just because basketball is a great game and you love it, you really want to do it for as long as you can. For a lot of guys, that's what they tell me. That's what I thought. That's what I believe. But at the end of the day, things got to also make sense financially for you. And that's where things get a little tricky. And that's where this conversation gets a little bit, outside of the real and more so of the fabricated, the Instagram, this is what it looks like to y'all. And y'all never really going to get the real information. So we just going to glamorize it in this way and make it seem like, it's the lit thing to do. And it's not to say that it's not. It is for a lot of different reasons. But again, just being real and just being honest about it is the main focus right now, at least. So 2,000 to 2,500 people playing abroad. And I asked, of those people, how many are making roughly $100,000 a season or more? Again, these are just rough estimates because there's no real data to support and pull numbers from to say, like, all right, this is what the exact thing is. So ChatGPT did the best it could with the information it was given, just like, it told me, saying, yo, I really can't give you a real rough estimate, but this is how I'm going to guesstimate what this number may be. So of those 2,000 to 2,500 people, ChatGPT thinks there are 700 to 900 of those players making $100,000 in a season. Not each season, but a season. And that's another part of this conversation that we have to have, because it's not like here in the NBA where you are in the league for a little bit of time and you can stick it out and you can grind and you're going to make a certain amount of money on a year-by-year basis once you hit a certain point, and that's a whole different conversation, but it's not like that overseas. So you're always playing for your worth on the overseas level. Like, you really have to grind on a year-to-year basis because that next contract might not come, or that next contract might not come at the number you think it's going to come at if you don't perform, which puts a lot of stress on players and a lot of pressure on players on a yearly basis. But again, 700 to 900 make $100,000 a season. So I say that to say a lot of the money that you think these overseas players may be getting is not really like that, and I played 10 years overseas. I've seen, heard, and experienced a lot of cap when it came to how much dudes was making. And I can be honest to say that I'm not the person that made $100,000 every single season overseas. There are years where my contracts weren't that. There are years where my contracts weren't really shit. especially coming into the game and having a grind to make myself a reputable player enough overseas to then want, have people want to hire me for a certain amount. But a lot of dudes you think may be making maybe 8, 9, 10K a month might be making closer to 1 and 2. I ain't been overseas for 6 years now. I don't really know how the contracts is looking outside of what I hear here and there, but numbers ain't really like that. So do the math. You're making that money at a, lower number, and you got to support yourself throughout a whole season and a whole summer when you get home to then maybe get to the next season and try to do it again. Like, these dudes ain't really making no money like that. And when you're done playing basketball, because the ball's going to stop bouncing at some point, it does for all of us, what is the plan? Like, this is where the whole trap conversation comes into play, because you can just keep doing the same thing if you can afford to do it. If you ain't got enough, a lot of bills on the back end at home where you got to pay mortgages, you got a wife, a kid, all those other kind of things where you got real responsibilities, then you can ride it out, make your money while you're there. You might get per diem from the team to where they're paying for your meals, so you really got to spend that much on food, and you can kind of make it happen to where you can make money last while you're there and at home a little bit too. But knowing that you're not really going to retire from the game with that much, you got to really start to think about what's going to happen after you retire. And you guys know I'm big on athletes, mental health, and the things they go through. What I would say is that the decisions you make while you're playing can make your life a little bit rougher when you leave the game, as if transitioning outside of the game is not enough. If you got to do it where you're really strapped for cash and you don't really know what to do to make money or develop a career while you're back home, like that's where dudes go left. And that's where you see the depression happen. That's where you see people in real bad positions to where, their life looked one way when they was playing the game, and now it looks completely different now that they not, So that said, you got to really be smart about this whole trap thing and making sure that while you're in the game, you're taking the time, I would say, to think about what's going to happen next. And I'm blessed. I would say that I have a better experience than some people that I know who came home overseas. And it's not to compare struggles, but I've gone through my own to get to the point where I'm at now. And people think that it was like this, like, yo, you came home, you're doing so good. So you got promoted, you're doing your thing now. You're head coach, head trainer, this is that, whatever. Like, bro, if you knew the things that I had to go to get to the first win that I felt like I had when I got home, then like you look at things a little bit differently. But either way, I still maintain that I'm blessed. I'm in a great position, but my struggle is not unique. I think that a lot of guys end up in that kind of position. But I would say what is unique about my situation is that I was always forward thinking when I was a player and had the chance and opportunity and mindset to look like further than when the ball stopped bouncing and what I was really going to do with my life. And that started about halfway through my career. So I played 10 years. By year 5, I'm thinking about, damn, like not even knowing how long I was going to continue to play. Because again, I was thinking play until nobody will pay you to do it. But on year 5, I said, listen, this thing's going to stop at some point. So what am I really going to do, or what do I think I can do to maybe transition into a new thing whenever I feel like I'm ready to, And year 5, came home in the summertime. I left, I think, Geneva, Switzerland that year. Came home in the summertime, and I decided to take on an internship at a gym to be a trainer for the summer, just to fill it out. I've had my own journey with fitness and journey with staying in shape as a player, and I thought it was something I could really connect with on the back end in some form or facet, just because I wanted to do, I wanted to kind of mimic some things that there are guys out there that do it now, like Paul John Fabritz, or if I'm messing up his name, sorry, but PJF, and he's a pretty well-known basketball trainer, but also strength and conditioning coach. And I saw myself mimicking some of that, in my post-athletic career. So I decided to dive into the training thing and just understand, what it's like to be a trainer, a physical personal trainer, to where we doing what we're doing and what I'm doing now, basically. So got that experience, went back overseas and kept playing, kept making sure that I gave myself the opportunity to play, but the bug was always there for when I'm done, this is probably what I'm going to dive right into, And when I was done, it's pretty much what I leaned into right away, because I can tell you right now, and I can be open and honest, that when I left the game, it was one of the lowest points in my life athletically, just because I felt like my career wasn't going the way I wanted it to. But it was also one of the lowest points in my life, like mentally, physically, spiritually, and everything else that, we talk about on this podcast to keep safe and guard. I would feel like all of that was stripped from me when I stepped away from the game of basketball. But I knew what I wanted to do, and I dove right in because I didn't really feel like I had much time coming home. With being 100% honest, I left the game at that point with maybe like $7,000 to my name saved. And that's on a year-to-year basis, just making sure my bills is paid, all that other stuff, and contract woes up and down, and situations not going the way you wanted it to, and you having to make things stretch, and maybe leaving the team, having to figure out what the next situation was going to be. So when I left the game at that point, that was it. So do the math. That don't last long. Trust me, it don't. Especially with some decisions I made with it, which is another thing that we may speak out at another point. But say $7K left in my bank account to say, all right, I'm coming home and I'm getting right into something else because I can't sit down. I maxed out this basketball thing for as long as I feel like I could myself, and then I need to just transition right into something else. So got right to it. Came home, figured out what I wanted to do, leaned into the opportunity, and then the opportunity really took me on a whirlwind to where now I'm this person, and been retired from the game 6 years, and every year I'm retired from the game is 1 year closer to me doing something else longer than I was a basketball player. So I still to this day miss the game to the core of my being. Still, I'm just an athlete, tried and true, and I'm very open and very transparent about that with anyone that talks to me, and that's 6 years after me finishing the play. So imagine how much for someone who did not think about what they wanted to do next, what that transition could be like. And again, the depression they can experience, the identity crisis they go through, and all those things that can really just turn dudes upside down, and to where real things might be in play, like substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, those kind of things. This is the athlete struggle that I champion to the core of my being, because I've lived it, I've been through it, I've experienced it, and I like to speak to those guys that may be in the same situation, and I like to speak for those guys because I don't feel like it gets put on a high enough platform for people to understand that, athletes are people too, that cliche saying or whatever. But in a real way, athletes are people too, to where major life shifts for the normal human being versus major life shifts for an athlete, don't really get the same attention. And the trap is what puts you there in that space. So we got to make sure you're doing things the right way. And this is not to be someone who is downing playing overseas basketball, because again, it is a beautiful fucking thing. I did it for a long time, enjoyed a lot of it, dealt with a lot of bullshit from it, but it was beautiful. You get paid to play a game and bounce a ball and shoot baskets and travel around the world. As much as you want to complain about it while you're doing it, the team money being a little bit late, the grocery store not having the foods that you might want because you're from America and the shit don't taste the same. All those things that you might complain about, just understand you are in a beautiful situation. There's a lot of people with a lot more strenuous jobs. There's a lot of people with a lot more high stress jobs, because playing a game can be stressful, but again, compared to other things out there that people can be doing, it's sweet. It's sweet. So enjoy it if you're going to do it, because you ain't going to have another opportunity like that in your life. Your leg's going to last for so long. God forbid you don't have a serious injury that cuts your career a little bit shorter, but you only have a short window to play basketball. So if you're going to do it to the best of your ability, knowing that it's just going to stop at some point, and have a plan. The trap is real. There's guys out here that are getting, put in situations, and I'm hearing some now that's even crazier than when I was playing. And you really got to guard yourself, and some of these agents ain't going to do it for you. Yeah, I know how I feel about agents. Refer back to episode whatever. Your representation ain't always going to do it for you overseas. Even less so overseas than they would be here in the States. There's a lot more incentive. The dollars are a lot bigger here for, trainers and, not trainers, excuse me, for the agents, the representation to want to do a great job. A lot of them overseas agents is trash. Trash would be the nice way of putting it. So got to make sure you're doing the right things for you and understand that this game is only going to last so long. And after that game is over, create a plan. You don't have to be an entrepreneur like me. I'm different. I'm wired very differently. I am a person who wants my own thing. That ain't everybody, and I understand that. But you do got to have an understanding of you, who you are as a person, and what you can do next after that ball stops bouncing. Because when it does, life don't stop moving, bro. It don't. And that next thing has to be there for you to transition into, even though it's going to take a lot of time for you to disconnect from being a person who just shot balls and had fun doing it, and now it's done. Like, it's a hard transition. It is. I guarantee it's something that is going to shape the core of your being for the rest of your life once you step away from the game. But have a right way to do it for yourself, and just know that that plan may not go the way you wanted to. My plans when I came home did not go exactly the way I wanted to. They changed multiple times, and I pivoted multiple times to where it's, hey, here I am. I'm a podcaster. I am a trainer. I am a fitness coach. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I am now on the cusp of being a facility owner to where I'm running my own operation. That ain't got to be everybody. If that ain't you, cool. But have something for you and understand what that next path is. And if you need help, like, hopefully you got some good resources around you that can help you figure it out. I would say mine were pretty good, but it's still an internal battle that you got to walk through on you, like, by yourself. You can be the only one that does it. So, I mean, that's really that on the conversation. It was leaning heavy on my heart, and I know we never had this all-out convo like this on the podcast, and I wanted to make sure that I could deliver my thoughts and my messages as clearly as I could. Hopefully you can connect with that. And really, I mean, that's pretty much it, man. Just understand your legacy as a basketball player is going to be very minimal to what you can do the rest of your life, you know. And the world is big. Use those same tools that you had as a player to make sure that you can tap into something else, wherever your feet land, whatever industry you take on. Just know that whatever you did in the game should sharpen you to make you better for that as you go forward. And with that said, man, I guess we'll get to the point where we wrap this thing up. Just wanted to have that quick convo. Like I said, I'm kind of feeling these quick hitters until we get some other conversations out of, on the board, which we do have some coming up soon and I'm looking forward to. But you're going to keep hearing from me. Get used to it. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And of course, we love the love over here at the EFS podcast. But on the way out, man, the quote for the day kind of leans into what I just said about, the transition, the pivot, and understanding that what you did can change how you move forward in the future. The quote today is, "The mentality never changes, but how you channel it is key to your growth and development outside your sport." And that is a Burkeism, and it's, again, as clear as I wanted to say it, is the mentality never changes, meaning the way you approach your game, the way you approach your development as a player, the way you approach the seriousness about being an athlete and a professional. It is something that is not common to people who are not athletes and professionals. Trust me, I see it all the time in this working world, and I'm like, y'all motherfuckers is soft. Like, you complain about this, you complain about that. Like, athletes are just used to just doing it. Like, shout out to Nike. Just do it and make sure it happens, because it is the next thing that you have to do to maintain your status in what you're trying to do, which is be the best athlete that you can. So one more time, the mentality never changes, but how you channel it is key to your growth and your development outside of your sport. So use what you learned, use every experience you had, them times that you was running lines and lines and lines and lines till your ass was about to pass out. Those times when you had to wake up early just to get the workout in because you knew you couldn't fit it in anywhere else in the day. The times where you had to feel the pressure of late game situations and knowing that this is going to be a make or break. All those things sharpen you and make you more wired than people who haven't been through those experiences. So use it. But again, make sure you're doing what you need to do to set yourself up for success in the future. So as always, man, EFS Podcast is here, continuing to train. And if you like it and made it this far, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to guard yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and all things in between. Until the next go round, episode number 71 is out. EFS Podcast. Peace.